Santa's helpers. Gather round the fire, children. Grandpa has a very important story to tell you before Christmas is here. Now you all know about Santa Claus and his reindeer, and that he leaves presents to all the good little girls and boys, but only to them. This story is what happens to all the bad children and what they receive and experience on Christmas morning. Now there's different versions all over the world, even different versions in parts of the country. But if you're bad throughout the year, it isn't Santa who will pay you a visit and fill your stockings with goodies and leave the presents you asked for under the tree. No. One of his evil helpers will be sent in his place and leave you a more fitting gift for your naughty behavior. This is what truly happens, children. There's no coal that he leaves. Don't believe that nicety. He doesn't even bother with the naughty children anymore. Instead, these foul creatures are what he sends instead. Creatures and beings that would make Krampus look like a moist puppy. First on the list is England. The naughty children there are visited by a being called Black Billy, a tiny wee gentleman elf-like creature that is dressed in black leather, carrying a whip, and rides to your house on a black goat with 6 unusually large teeth. The unsuspecting children are greeted with the squeaky sounds of leather as his tiny boots approach their back door. That's right, the back door. He doesn't come through the chimney like old Saint Nick. Once he jostles the lock open with a sharpened candy cane, he then creeps to the naughty child's room, greets them with a smile, and tells them to follow him downstairs so he can give them their presents and some treats. But once that foot hits the bottom step, he informs them that they were on the naughty list, and he was sent by Santa to punish them. First he takes them to the kitchen, where he offers them cookies and milk, except the milk comes from the goat's rancid old teats, which he milks right in front of them, and pulls some fresh, steamy cookies from the goat's back oven. Fresh and hot, right out of the anus. He says to them, laughing sinisterly. 2 sights I'm sure those children will never forget. He then hands them their stockings and presents that are usually filled with every pet or animal's remains that has died in the house they're living in, then hops up on his goat, which shoots one last squirt of foul milk on the floor, warns the children to behave or he'll return next Christmas, then rides off into the darkness, his leather slowly fading away into the night. Next up is Austria, where naughty children are visited by Jacob, the Christmas Viper. He'll magically appear wherever the home's cleaning supplies are held. When he arrives, he'll glide his way up to the children's bedroom and wake them with a peppermint and pine tree scented spray of Lysol right under their nostrils. When they awake, they see a gentleman dressed in all white, gliding around their room on a Swiffer jet sweep, powered by the tears of naughty children past. He says he's been sent by Santa, and as the children become excited, he beckons them downstairs with promises of presents and treats. But once downstairs, he hands them rice cakes from circa 1998 for a treat, and a glass of warm tap to wash it down, then places the children's presents on their laps, but only after they've had their Christmas treat. And when they open their presents, they're greeted with old used towelettes and dried up wet naps from years past. If the children have been very naughty, they're given an old, extremely used wet dishcloth to suck on while Jacob watches and proceeds to clean off the child's hands and feet until the skin comes off. He tells the children that they were very naughty this year, and he was sent by Santa to help clean up their act. He then bows, squirts one more splash of festive juice on the floor, and glides off on his candy cane painted Swiffer. Next up on the list is, "Excuse me, Dad. Is this tale almost finished? I have to get the kids to bed." "No, I still have many regions to go." "Wrap it up, Dad. They need to go to bed, and I don't want you scaring the kids." "Fine, fine. I'll speed run the rest and save the best one for last." There's Felista in Mexico, a creature that awakens the children with the sounds of their parents' screams, because it is sawing off the parents' private parts with its sharp razor-like teeth. Talk about stocking stuffers. Then there's Pinus, the Christmas spruce, a tree-like creature that's found in any heavily wooded area around the world. Pinus comes to life on Christmas and devours the entire family's Christmas presents and regurgitates it back all over the living room floor. Careful of the pets, though, because it's been said steamy chunks of Rover and Puss Puss have been coughed up as well. "Dad, that's enough now. Look at their faces. You're frightening them." All right. I'm at the end. And this one is right here, kids. This creature takes care of most of the northern part of the Midwest, and its name is Stoolzabub, the evil demon of shit and excrement. You see, this legend's name became somewhat popular not far from here when a cult sacrificed themselves and a couple of virgins in an old abandoned bus terminal in the 80s. But Stoolzabub has been in the shadows for much, much longer. Santa has never been afraid to call on Stoolzabub. He'll come up through the toilet, sometimes solid, sometimes liquid, all depending on the previous night's family meal. He comes in an array of colors, but mostly a combination of brown, dark black, and green. But trust me, you'll know he's there before you ever lay eyes on him. And this is the one creature Santa sends where you know you must have been naughty this year. No confusion over this one. Stoolzabub doesn't make courtesy calls, or flushes, as a matter of fact. He'll summon you downstairs with a friendly moist tap on the shoulder, leaving a fresh brown smudge on your clothing. As he waves you down the steps and points you towards the tree, you begin to smell 1,000 years of funk wafting through the air. Don't bother plugging in the Febreze odor removers. They will only flicker and short out, causing an electrical fire. Try not to pass out from the fumes. It's only 1,000 years of collected chamber pots and sewage delights from the history of man, and it's usually just the collection of evil feces that is used for more potency. If your nostrils were strong enough and you made it to the bottom of the stairs, Stoolzabub will point you to take a seat by the Christmas tree. There you will see your Christmas tree has changed. It now smells like 100 deceased colons and is completely wet, dripping with what Grandpa likes to describe as Hershey squirts. As you sit there contemplating life's choices, Stoolzabub hands you a Christmas treat, a homemade platter of his caramel salty fudge, only to be described as droppings from the gods. And to wash it down, he hands you a hot mug of brown liquid goodness, odious and steamy, with a nutty flavor, they say. Think of a Forever Rocher, just the ass version. After you've had your foul meal, a present is placed on your lap, still leaking from the freshness out of the demon's cheek and straight into your hands. Your present is whatever you asked for, except in shit form. So imagine instead getting a tickle the shit out of me Elmo, or a Crappings Patch doll. Maybe some figures from Masters of the Crabiverse. Maybe some Ninja Turtles. This will definitely put a twist on some Lincoln Logs. Stoolzabub will then stand there for a moment, basking in his accomplishments, give a quick, squishy salute, warn you to never be naughty again, or he'll come back next time, double the shits. But before he makes his way back to the toilet, he reaches around and pulls out a brown candle from his stink hole, places it on the fireplace mantel, and lights it. Something for the family to enjoy throughout Christmas Day. He then sludges off to the toilet, flushes himself, and disappears. So I hope you've been good children. There's still time. Do your chores, brush your teeth, listen to Mom, because I know one thing, damn it. I don't want to have to smell that shit candle for Christmas. The Dollhouse. Another successful Christmas, Charles thought. He took a sip of brandy and was surveying the scene of the children's Christmas massacre, wrapping paper strewn about recklessly, cardboard boxes emptied from its contents, and a dying ember in the fireplace as a backdrop. He could hear the older kids playing outside. It was assuredly going to turn into a rough game of football. But his youngest daughter was entertaining herself with a dollhouse her grandfather had built for her. The dollhouse was an exact replica of Charles' childhood home in Georgia, a beautiful estate that sat on 3 acres of land. It had become difficult in his father's old age to maintain the property, and his father had been arguing with Charles to move back in for some time now. He assumed the gift was his father's passive way of guilting him. "Let me take a picture of you for Grandpa," Charles said, placing his brandy down and taking out his phone. Charles' daughter posed dutifully, plastered with a toothy grin in front of the fireplace, her hand placed atop the dollhouse. He sent the picture to his father along with a text. "Thanks for the dollhouse. She loves it. But it still doesn't change anything. Merry Xmas." "Why don't you play over here, away from the fireplace?" Charles said. "But I'm cold, Daddy," she said, protesting. "Why don't you grab a sweater and I'll put more wood on the fire?" Charles said. "Go on." He could hear her hurried feet scurry off, not wanting to miss a moment of playtime. His phone vibrated, a text from his father, no doubt. "This is not what your mother would have wanted." How dare he? Charles thought angrily, a building rage overwhelming him, and furious fingers went to work. "How would you know? You were never around." In a fit, he grabbed some kindling and mindlessly threw it in the fire, causing a spark to billow out. He watched the flames dance. Charles took deep breaths to calm himself, in and out. He would not let his father ruin another holiday. It was his life, his family, and he would not let his father control him the way he used to when he was a child. "Daddy!" The shrill voice of his young daughter distracted him from his anger. Alarmed, Charles quickly turned around and found his daughter pointing at the fireplace, eyes tear-filled with wide. He turned around and he saw the dollhouse, his childhood home, his daughter's Christmas gift burning. He quickly tried to pull it out, but the damage had been done. His phone began to ring. His father. "It's not a good time," Charles began. "It's gone, boy," his father interrupted. "It's all burned down." Charles hung up, a tear falling from his eyes, and for the first time since his mother passed, he felt whole again. Christmas Eve. Paige blinked awake, not sure what time it was. A moment later, her heart leapt as she remembered it was Christmas Eve. She snuggled into the blankets, prepared to drift back to sleep, when a thud on the roof startled her. She held still, wondering if it was her imagination, but just as she was about to give up, the distinct thump of footprints strode across the ceiling. Could it be? Paige pulled on her robe and slipped on her slippers. All the other kids at school teased her for believing in Santa Claus, but she'd known he was real. and now she could get proof. Snatching her Polaroid camera, Paige crept out of her room and down the hall. She tiptoed as quietly as she could to avoid waking her parents or brother. They weren't believers, and she was afraid if they woke up, Santa would leave. As she neared the living room doorway, she heard the sound of rustling. It seemed to be coming from the chimney. "Santa?" Paige called softly. There wasn't an answer, but the rustling got louder. A little bit of ash fell from the chimney into the fireplace. "Santa, is that you?" Rumbling issued from the fireplace, but she couldn't make out any words. "Santa, are you okay? Do you need help?" Paige shuffled towards the fireplace as fast as she could, wondering if Santa had somehow gotten stuck. She kneeled and peered into the chimney, but it was too dark to see anything. "I'm here, Santa. Can you hear me?" The rumbling answered, louder than before. "I can't see you. Hold on, I'm going to take a picture, okay?" The rumbling answered again, and more ash fell. Craning her neck to see as far up the chimney as possible, Paige clicked the shutter button. The brief flash reflected off the hundreds of teeth in the grinning jaws above her. The perfect Christmas dinner. The delicious scent of perfectly cooked honeyed ham filled the kitchen as Martha opened the oven. Oh, the family was going to love it. "Dinner is served," Martha sang as she carried the ham into the dining room. Her husband and kids turned to look, their eyes wide as saucers. "Sorry it took so long, but now we can eat." Martha lovingly set the ham down among the many side dishes: rosemary scalloped potatoes, candied yams, and pineapple stuffing. She served everyone a hearty scoop of each, crowning every plate with a generous serving of ham. Eager to begin her meal, Martha was about to sit when she realized she'd skipped the final step. "Silly me," she laughed, rising again. "You can't eat like that. Just give me a second." She went around the table, carefully peeling away the duct tape from her daughter's and son's mouths. When she got to her husband, he started chattering. "Marty, you don't have to do this. I swear to God, I'll never threaten to leave you again." "Oh, hush," Martha said, frowning. This wasn't how it was supposed to go at all. "Hush and eat your dinner. There's a good boy. At least let the kids go." Her husband's eyes were panicked, glancing at their children, then away. "I'll stay here forever, I promise. Just please let the kids—" "That's enough of that." Martha replaced her husband's duct tape, then sat at the head of the table. "Go on," she said to her son and daughter. "Eat up. It'll get cold." Shifting uncomfortably in their seats, the children picked up their silverware and began to pick at their food. It was difficult to maneuver, with the rope binding them to the chairs, but they managed. Smiling with bliss, Martha poured herself a glass of champagne and watched her happy family enjoy their meal. It was the perfect way to spend Christmas Eve. And her husband was right. He wasn't going to leave her. None of them were. In fact, no one would ever be leaving the house again. Martha smiled. "Don't forget to leave room for dessert." The last Christmas tree lot. Look, I know I procrastinated, but in my defense, I wasn't going to get a Christmas tree at all. Then my sister called and wants to bring her brood over on Xmas Day. But the pictures will just look drab without a tree. I'm not blaming her. I'm just saying, if I was an only child, I wouldn't be looking for a Christmas tree on Christmas Eve. Anyway, I've wasted several hours and a quarter tank of gas looking for a damn tree. No one has any, not the big box stores, not the pop-up tents. Hell, even the Walmart shelves were empty. So when I passed by that lot on the edge of town and saw an expanse of evergreens waiting to be bought, I pulled in without a second thought. There were quite a few other cars in the parking lot, but I didn't see any other customers as I trudged to the gate. A young man greeted me, his smile showing a gap between his front teeth. "Merry Christmas," he called. "I'm Lorne. Go on, take a look around, and when you find a tree, just give me a holler." I thanked him and hurried into the lot, hoping I could find a tree before my nose froze off. Let me tell you, for all the time I spent looking for a tree, I didn't actually know what kind of tree I wanted. I thought any tree would do at this point, and yet I found myself dismissing one after another. Too short, too tall, too sparse, too full. That's a weird shape. Night had fallen by this point, and I was starting to think I could just pick the closest one and head home. But just as I was considering it, I rounded the corner and saw the perfect tree. "Lorne!" I shouted. "Lorne!" I looked around for the young man, but didn't see him. In fact, I didn't see anyone or even the chain-link fence surrounding the lot. Was it really that big? I must have wandered pretty far in. I tried to make my way back, calling Lorne's name every so often. Surrounded by evergreens, I couldn't remember which way I'd come, and I started to get more frantic. And yet, the more panicked I got, the slower I went. Even when I tried to run, my feet felt as though they were moving through molasses. Eventually, I stopped altogether. My arms and neck became too stiff to move. I tried to blink, but my eyes wouldn't close. Everything smelled like pine, until it didn't. I realized I wasn't breathing. A stranger came into view. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. For a moment, I thought she didn't notice me, but then her eyes fell on me, and she lit up. "Lorne!" she called. "Lorne, I've found the perfect tree!" She disappeared out of sight, eager to find the manager and bring home her Christmas tree. A Christmas tragedy. Ian died 2 days before Christmas Eve. To be fair, it was more of a freak accident than anything else. But isn't that how most things go? Accidents. Ian worked in the logging business. He was cutting down a tall fir tree when a number of awful things happened all at once. The chains on the chainsaw snapped. The chain brake failed. The tree toppled over in the wrong direction. The point is, my husband did not survive any of those things. We had a quiet and quick funeral. Ian's never been the flamboyant type, and I contacted the chainsaw company, Lawson Electric, to see about a lawsuit. That's when the emails started pouring in. "Dear Mrs. Cohen, we at Woods & Son Chainsaws, estimated 1966, are terribly sorry for your loss. Please accept this Christmas gift as our sincere condolences. For more about our product, please contact 555-8891. In the mail, I find a $50 gift card for all W&S electrical appliances." The next day, another chainsaw company mails me, followed by a newspaper's interview request to discuss Ian's life and work. I realized that somehow the local Tribune sniffed out Ian's obituary, and now apparently his death is a hot story. The interview was Christmas-themed. I tried to keep the conversation on Ian, his passion for nature, his impressive woodcrafts, our life together. But the interviewer kept asking me questions about how Ian and I celebrated Christmas as a model American family, how we were honest, hard-working blue collars that represented the traditional holiday spirit. "Ian was Jewish," I said, incredulous. We spent Hanukkah at his mother's house. The next day, I received about 5 different chainsaws in the mail again, each from a different company. However, they all had the same idea, to let me try out their products so I can testify their efficiency as compared to Lawson Electric, which was already going bankrupt. I wrote 5 separate emails and told them to fuck off. However, Ian's story has been gaining popularity on the internet. He's a sort of Christmas martyr at this point, a tragic story of holiday cheers. Hallmark released a series of cards showing us as a happy couple, honeymoon pics, under a photoshopped mistletoe. I threw out my radio after we would like to remind you that no holiday season is complete without a Macy's special gift card. Purchase one now for your loved one and we'll donate an equal amount to the Diana Cohen Foundation, a tree for every family. This morning I find what's left of my in-laws gathered around a set of steak knives in the kitchen. There's a man in a business suit with them. He introduces himself as a salesman from Culture Knives. Tragedy sells around Christmas season, Mrs. Cohen, he states politely. After the chainsaw companies, I think it's time we give the knives a chance. I blink cluelessly at him. Now say for some reason you fall and trip on our competitor's brand of knives. And now, an added treat. The traditional Christmas poem, The Night Before Christmas, narrated by Beatlesfanize.
'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were all nestled, all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wandering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner, on Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As leaves that before the wind hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the corsairs they flew, with a sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was white as the snow. The stump of the pipe he held in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was a chubby and plump, right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team he gave a whistle, and away they flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere as he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night."